Thank you, and I'd like to call to order the regular City Commission meeting of Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Elder.
Present.
Commissioner Rozelle.
Present.
Commissioner Olsman.
Present.
Commissioner Jenks is absent but excused. He's at an MML meeting this evening, and Mayor Paul present. I'd like to start off the meeting with a couple words about our former city manager, Amy Sullivan. Amy served 2 terms here in Huntington Woods, one as an assistant city manager back in the 80s, and then came back as our city manager in 2014 and served for a little over 7 years until she retired to fight an illness. And we lost her on October 4th, earlier this month. And she's known in the community or around the state of Michigan for a long and distinguished career in local government. Many of our employees and residents appreciated her empathy and kindness towards them during her term as a city manager. So I just wanted to take a moment and ask all of you to join me for a moment of silence in memory of Amy Sullivan. Thank you. All right, moving on to our agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Comments or questions, changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Communications. We have a couple communications. I just want to make a quick comment about the first one. Our former city manager from back in the 80s, Mark Wallenweber, and then he came in to serve as our interim manager and helped us with our selection of our new city manager, Chris Wilson, recently received an award from the ICMA, the International City Managers Association, of the Distinguished Service Award. And the presentation talked about his 50-plus year career in city government and all his contributions to the many communities in the state of Michigan. His ability to work with young people and mentor them and train them over the years. And, you know, it was just typical of him coming back to help us when we had a need for the city manager. He was like that for many communities around the state, and I just thought it was a nice award and worth mentioning that he received that. Second communication, did you want to make a couple comments on the?
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Just briefly, want to make sure the residents, voters were aware there is an issue on the ballot this November for an Oakland County transit millage. There's been some news on this, and I think there's been a lot of questions. The county's put out a series of one-pagers. I included this one because I thought it was the one that was most relevant and specific to us. As we are currently a smart community, we are paying a smart millage. What'll be on the ballot in November is a 10-year 0.95 mil measure, which would maintain existing smart services for us and all current smart communities, but would also serve to expand services in some areas of the county that don't have them. If this passes, the current smart opt-in millage we are paying would go away. This 0.95 is slightly less than what we're paying at this point, but it's very close. So our service levels, if this passes, our service levels wouldn't change. The amount we're paying would be virtually unchanged. There have been some concerns about will we have to repeal that millage, or would residents pay both for a period of time? They won't. This will automatically repeal the smart opt-in millage we have, and services will continue with very little change, at least as far as it's related to Huntington Woods. So if there are any questions about that, they can refer back to this, this one pager, call the office, or reach out to Oakland County. There's a website, oakgov.com/Oakland Transit, talk more about the county proposal. But do look for that on your ballot this November. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I just chime in briefly on this? I just want to let the residents know that this is something that I feel that we should vote in favor of, and that is because the southern cities in this county have been subsidizing the northern townships for years. We subsidized their district courts, we subsidized their sheriff patrols. Parks and Recreation was a countywide millage that we saw little benefit from for years. And now there's an opportunity for everyone to pay the tax. And does their argument is the south end primarily benefits? Well, guess what? For decades, we got the short end of the stick. So I think this is a very equitable millage. And I think, as the city manager indicated, it's less than we're paying now, and it'll enhance service to the riders that rely on the service. So I would encourage our residents to vote in favor.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. I do not see any elected officials with us this evening or public, so I'm going to open those and close those and move on to the regular items of business. Item number 1 is a matter of consideration to receive and file the Public Act 51 annual certification of employee-related conditions.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is a matter of consideration of the approval of the amendment to the personnel manual for COVID sick time.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, I had one. Is there any thought to just having all, any use of this time requiring a positive COVID test, not just second or subsequent? It just makes sense to just treat any case of COVID the same way and just have them provide proof, whether it's the first time or the 6th time.
Yeah, I think the intent was, as the policy's written, the reason this came up when we didn't anticipate when the policy was originally drafted having second or third rounds of COVID. So I think it's beneficial to the employee and the employer that when the employee, if they catch it a second time, we don't want them coming in at risk to other employees or the community. They need to take that time off, but we didn't want them to have to use their own sick bank or their own paid time off. So we were just looking to make sure they were covered the second, if they did have subsequent COVID infections. It hasn't been a serious issue, it hasn't been an issue that's affected a lot of employees. The question came up about providing proof of that, and I filled in a couple of questions from the commission about or what kind of proof are we requiring. The only reason we were requiring proof is because they were getting the time off and not being required to burn the time. I don't think it's not a significant issue to staff if I don't see it as an issue somebody's going to abuse. So if you wanted to modify that to remove the proof requirement, it would be fine. If you want to keep it, I think staff's fine with it either way. The main incentive was just to make sure people don't feel like they need to come to work and burn through their time. We want to encourage them, still go through the now 5-day quarantine, what used to be 10. Now take your 5 days off, don't come to work, and get healthy before you come back.
And then I thought of the second question, and that is, are you going to be entering into letters of agreement with the labor unions to modify their collective bargaining agreement for this?
We could do a memorandum of understanding with them for that, so that
Okay.
would be the appropriate tone for that.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions and comments on this. Chris and I had a conversation prior to this meeting. I really, there have been no abuses of this policy at all, right? And for a while there, these at-home tests were not picking up COVID positive. Now there are cases where you quarantine for 5 days, and then after the 5 days, you're still testing positive, even though you may not be contagious. The virus is evolving, and that's one issue that I have with just the language that says proof. I think it should just simply say, if you have COVID, this is the protocol. The reason why I'm a little concerned about having to show proof is all of those reasons, but in addition, it signals to me as an employee, like, where is the employer trust here? And I just, in a time where there's a talent shortage right now, and I would hate to have our employees feel like they have to submit something that's a little bit intrusive. I haven't heard of any issues, right, from our staff of abusing
No.
this, so I would feel more comfortable if it just said, if you have COVID, if you are COVID positive, this is the procedure. If it becomes an issue, then we put something in place that says you need to show me proof. That, I would feel more comfortable with something like that.
I think administration's fine with dropping the proof requirement. There used to be a proof requirement that you were negative before you come back to work. We don't do that anymore, I think, for the reasons kind of the Commissioner Elder spoke of. So now if you go through the quarantine, you're fine to come back, if you're not displaying symptoms. Because some of those, you can still test positive, I believe, 2-3 weeks after you are no longer contagious. So if you wanted to drop, which section was that?
Well, I'm gonna just ask the question, probably more to Carol than anything else. If we do have an employee that's abusing it, or we don't know, but we think they're abusing it, and we don't have that in here, where do we stand at that point? If we could have back in, are we targeting an employee and?
Well, I mean, if you're having abuses, that's usually when you end up changing a policy, so you could put it back in at that point. It's not uncommon to ask people to provide verification, that they need to be out of work, they were out sick. So it's totally your choice.
I mean, Mr. Mayor, the county, we're required to provide positive COVID result for any time off related to COVID. And I think the logic that the county used was there's a lot of viruses going around that seem like COVID but aren't really COVID, cold, sinus infections and whatnot. So although it would make sense to not go to work and spread a sinus infection or strep throat or anything else around, in order to utilize that COVID time, they are requiring us to submit proof at the county. But and that was the logic, is other viruses that are like COVID but aren't COVID.
I have another question. So, Chris, right now, for the first time when you get infected, do you still have to show proof of a positive test?
Everybody has. Everybody's some, either, sometimes it's just been a home test, but they have shown some tests that they did have COVID and we didn't charge them sick time.
So you are currently already having to show proof if it's
Yes.
the first
Yeah,
time?
everybody's showing that. Ethan, unless I'm wrong.
There's been a lot of changes to COVID policies over the last 2 years just because the situation keeps evolving. I don't recall there being a formal you have to do this, but I know in our city hall office, I had COVID in June. I was just like, here's my, proof just to make me feel better. I think our employees tend to just do that because either they assume that there is a requirement or they're just trying to be transparent. So I don't think there's formal language stating that, first time around you have to show, but I think the intent behind this was just to save, and just make sure people are being accountable.
So there's no language right now that says you have to show proof?
Not formal, no. Employees have just been doing it informally just because that's how they are.
Okay. So I guess in reality, in practice, it's really not that big of a deal.
I haven't gotten, Chris and I have not got any pushback, from the contents of this memo. In conversations I've had, people are already doing it anyway. So it's just kind of formalizing what's already happening.
Okay. Let's not make a big deal out of it then. Do whatever you want.
My proof was literally a screenshot of my positive test from my bedroom, and I sent it to the staff right here.
I'm not having to do it with my employer, so this was kind of like a whoa
So,
for me, but if there's no problem, then no problem.
I don't think it's been an issue.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is a matter of approving the amendment to section 9.02 of the Personnel Manual, holiday vacation time.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions?
This is a pretty strict policy, I'll tell you that. Pretty uncommon, so I'm glad to see that we're modifying it, Mr. Mayor.
I think it was.
Probably was never enforced.
I don't believe so. What Ethan is proposing, I think can be enforced, and I think it is fair. Yeah, I was surprised to see the "and" in there. Most places it's an "or," and for obvious reasons. Or is enforceable, and again, we can still have some flexibility with that, but, yeah, I was surprised that was a little, it was strict, yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to item number 4, the redevelopment ready community presentation and discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Am I in your way?
Well, you might not be able to see. If it's okay, I'll turn down this light so you can actually see. Basically, what we'd like to do this evening, first, thank you for having us here for the opportunity to do this. We wanted to go over the redevelopment ready communities, what it is, what it does, where we are, where we have to go, and some other considerations that you might have during it. So what I'd like to do is to go ahead and talk about this for just a second. So what are the redevelopment ready communities, which is known as the RRC? The program measures and then certifies communities that integrate transparency, predictability, and efficiency into their daily developmental practices. The RRC certification is a formal recognition that your community has a vision for the future and fundamental practices in place to get there, and that's from the MEDC website. While Huntington Woods doesn't have a lot of redevelopment opportunities, it's also very important to maximize the potential for those that we do. Some communities in the Detroit metro region that are RRC certified: Lathrop Village, Southfield, Novi, Oak Park, Farmington, Ferndale, Rochester Hills, Roseville, East Point, and Romulus. Some communities that have chosen not to participate in the RRC certification are Berkeley, Royal Oak, Beverly Hills, Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, and Troy. So let's take a look. And see what are the benefits. And again, in order to, from the MEDC, is to be vibrant and competitive, Michigan communities must be ready for development. This involves planning for new investment and reinvestment, identifying assets and opportunities, and focusing limited resources. Redevelopment-ready communities tend to attract and retain businesses, offer superior customer service, and have a streamlined development approval process, making pertinent information available around the clock for anybody to view. Being RRC certified could help us with networking, grant access, as well as access to development-minded companies and individuals. So what are the negatives? There's two sides to every coin. Time constraints, resources to complete and time to implement the tasks. Certainly, if you take a look at what is involved in an RRC process, you find that a lot of the tasks they want are daunting. So sometimes it takes a lot of time in order to complete this. 2, the RRC dictates policy. They have a set of standards that have to be met in order to get the RRC certification. And some RRC requirements require City Commission to change priorities and/or policies. 3, a lot of the communities that I've talked to that I've listed here feel that the requirements don't generate in-kind results. Kind of, is the juice worth the squeeze, if you will, on that. So what steps have we taken so far? Currently, we're in the process of becoming an RRC community. And we started into the Main Street program and are in the process of becoming an associate member. 2, we're in the process of completing the Trello board, which is how MEDC assigns their tasks that have to be completed in order to go ahead and become an RRC. And again, MEDC monitors this. 3, we've examined our zoning ordinance with an eye towards being redevelopment ready and are looking for limited changes, or looking at limited changes for 11 Mile. 4, we've completed a master plan update which aligns with the goals of the redevelopment ready certification and also meshes with our zoning ordinance. We've also already submitted grant applications that further the recently adopted master plan and also align with RRC guidelines. And 6, we're meeting with neighboring communities to enhance all of our communities, as well as our Complete Streets program and Safe Routes to School and RRC requirements by virtue of doing all that. So where are we now? RRC certification began in 2020 and was handled exclusively by the city manager's office. The tasks were taken over by planning in late 2021. Since then, some of the tasks that tie in have been completed, and others will need commission approval prior to submission to MEDC. There are specific tasks that have a redirection of policy or require some modifications to employment manuals or policies and procedures that we normally have in the office. And those will need city commission approval prior to submitting it to the MEDC. So where exactly are we? There's approximately 27 items in the RRC certification process. Right now, out of that 27, we've completed 13. We're in the process with 8, and we have 6 that we have left to complete that we haven't been able to touch at this point. So percentage-wise, that translates to 48% completed, 29% in process, and 22% left to do. For a timeline as to what we expect to finish for redevelopment ready certification, I put November 1st in to start so that we have an idea of where we're going, because this month is kind of tied up for us. And that'll be our start for what we have left, not the 48% that we've done already, but what we have left. I would suggest a checkpoint again, February 1st in 2023, which will give us an idea of how we're progressing or what work we have, or if we want to continue with this process, with the finish slated for May 2023. And again, that's going to be dependent on how much time we have to allocate to actually complete this, time that we have to allocate in order to do the tasks, and the responses from the people that we need in order to complete those tasks, as well as getting certain things in front of certain boards and commissions that need to happen in order to finish this. So that being said, that's kind of where we're at with the RRC at this point, and I'm certainly happy to entertain any questions that you all might have. Thank you. Turn the light back on.
Okay, does anyone have any questions at this point in the process? Thanks for the update, Hank.
Certainly.
I don't know about the rest of the commission, but I appreciate all the work that's been done, and let us know how we can help and keep up the good work.
I'll be doing that.
Yes. All right, finally, we're moving on to item number 5, Warden Commission appointments. Anyone like to,
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we appoint Nathaniel Schiffbauer to the Arts and Garden Board for a partial term ending 2023, and that we appoint Francesca Haley as the Parks and Recreation Student Representative.
So, second.
any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Chris, I'm assuming you'll notify these two of their new jobs?
Yes, Heidi.
Or
do
Heidi
that.
will?
Yes.
Okay.
She's more personable.
All right. Moving on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I'll try to be brief, but it's been a while since we met, so I do have a few things to update on. One of the things that was mentioned briefly by Hank in the report, I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking to you about, because I think there'll be some, probably some, maybe a little press on this. The city did undertake a process since we last met. We became aware of a grant that was available, a Reconnecting Communities, Hank, what is it? Community, Reconnecting Communities grant application. So, we found out about this with less than 2 weeks where the grant application was due, which tight deadlines just sometimes make us more efficient. So, we had a community process. It was Berkeley, Oak Park, Huntington Woods, and Royal Oak. Did submit an application for a significant project along 11 Mile. Every community contributing, I think, what was felt was relevant to our needs. The most relevant parts, I believe, for Huntington Woods that would be in the application would be traffic calming issues and pedestrian safety, most notably a light here across from City Hall to tie up with a pedestrian crossing at, it's Mortensen, right?
Yeah, well, this would tie into Mortensen.
Just outside the fire station, which the fire station could control for their needs, getting trucks out. But it would give us a dedicated pedestrian crossing light there, which I think would be key. And another one farther to the east on 11 Mile roughly at Meadowcrest to allow access kind of to the park and allow access back and forth across 11 Mile there. It was noticeable, as I think you're all aware, there are no dedicated pedestrian crossings from Woodward to Coolidge. So that's not enough, but it's 200% more than what we have right now. So we did include those two in the process. We think that would have a significant traffic calming impact. There are some aspects of the project that involve the intersection at Coolidge and 11 that's really more impacted with Berkeley and Oak Park, although we do have the east side of that. Royal Oak is also a participant looking at some of their things on their section of 11 Mile. Some minor things we can do at the intersection of 11 and Woodward. I don't want to overpromise there because that's still under the jurisdiction of Michigan Department of Transportation, but we did take an eye at some pedestrian safety issues even along there. So it was good to get all four communities involved. OHM was the lead engineer for Oak Park, did a lot of the heavy lifting on this. We had some assistance from the National League of Cities. We committed to a minor cost outlay on this just for the processing of it. It wasn't significant. But there was a lot of work done on this, and most of it not by me. Hank did a lot of work to get this together in a short period of time. So this would be an 80%, 20% federal fund. We can offset some of our contribution with in-kind contributions, which we made some calculations on, but for the benefit that we could receive just from the two pedestrian crossings, it was well worth our time, I think, to pursue this. So the application's in. Now we sit and wait, and this could be something I think that would be very, very beneficial. So I'll continue to update as we hear more on that. Favorite time of the year, isn't it? Leaf pickup is about to start like right now. They're going to be out later this week picking up leaves. There are a few that I see that are out at the curb now. There's going to be more. They're going to fall heavy, I think, in the next 10 to 12 days. We'll be picking up again through late November, early December. Everybody knows, I think, the process here. We'll still continue to pick up yard waste through Tringali, but we'll be hitting the leaf pickup very hard over the next few weeks. Got some good news. We've had some changes. There were some changes prior to when I got here regarding our healthcare consultant. We had moved away from one firm to another, then that firm sold back to the firm we had moved away from. So we were looking for a provider again. I think we made a solid selection that has been very helpful to us, a firm, IBEX, who we also might be familiar with through our liability insurance provider for years. I've worked with IBEX over the years. We just got our renewal rate for this year. I would normally not go through the mundane process of telling you what our healthcare, renewal rate was, except We got a 3.7% reduction this year, which is rare. And we're happy for that. Some of these are because of the experience rating that we go through now, some of the, which was in effect after the Affordable Care Act. There is some volatility in that, but that's will have a significant positive impact on our budget, because we budgeted for usually around 8 to 10% increase every year. So we get a 3.7% reduction in a cost center that high. Will have a significant positive impact. Back to the budget. Election season is here. We will have one more meeting before the election on November the 8th. Just a couple of updates on that. We processed around 2,300 absentee ballot applications to date. We're obviously still taking those in, still processing. There are some that haven't been returned, so obviously get those back as soon as you can. It's pretty much a part of the daily routine of the office now. Not just absentee ballots, we've also, I hear we're registering a few people to vote for the first time at the counter, which is always a good thing. They don't let me do that, but it's good to see that happen anyway. We still have the absentee ballot drop box location here in the main lobby. We've moved the main drop box location to the west side of the building. Now, there used to be one in this lobby here by the mailboxes. We've had to relocate. There were some changes in state law that drop box locations now have to be video monitored 24/7, have to be lit. So we tried to hold that out as just a water bill drop box only, but we were still getting some ballots in there, and we can't do that. So any drop box after hours activity, please do use the outside box. We just installed that, but it is monitored now 24/7 as the law requires. So water bills and AVs can go in there after hours or on weekends during the day. You can bring them in here and drop them off in the lobby. The office will be open on Saturday, November the 5th, from 8:30 to 5, correct?
4.
8:30 to 4.
No, 8 to 4.
I was wrong both ways. 8 to 4 on the 5th. For any voting issues you may have that day, we'll be staffed here. So if you have issues with your AV, you want to come in and take a look, if you have ballot questions, that can all be handled on the 5th. Also, we're normally closed from the hours of 1 to 2 for lunch, but the week prior to the election, the week of the October 31st through November 4th, we're going to stay open. We'll stay open and man the building because people will probably be coming in. So we will do all that week before. Things are going smoothly and well. Voter turnout is high as it's always going to be here in Huntington Woods. We did start employment with our new community engagement officer, Francesco Ferrara. He's doing some work doing a lot of work now on the city's website, working on the library website as well, taking over the email news blast, and has been very helpful. Getting a couple of community surveys out. You may have seen some talk about that. So, and he's everything I've asked him to do, and a couple of things I haven't. So he's doing very, very well. Finally, last thing I wanted to talk about, we did start to see, some of these are old rankings, but I've seen some more of the community rankings. You probably see these all over the internet that come in, and this is not a whole list, exhaustive list, but I did see a few that I thought would be worth pointing out for some of the rankings Huntington Woods did receive in the last year. Depending on who you talk to, we're either the best place to live in Michigan or the 4th best place to live in the state of Michigan. 2nd best place to raise a family, 2nd safest city in all of Michigan, and the best suburb in the state. That was for 2021, and I haven't seen the 2022 rankings, but I bet we'll be up there again. So those are just a quick review of all the state and national rankings, and that's not exhaustive. Those are just the top 5 rankings that I saw. So no surprise, great place to live, great place to raise a family, safe. Credit all the work that's been done by staff and commission over the years to maintain that. So we're going to advertise. I've asked Francesco to shamelessly toot our horn in some of our publications over that, and he will do that. So I'll be looking for those in the weekly email blast as well. We will probably even throw in a few more I didn't list there. But
I have a question about,
yes.
for is it Francesco?
Francesca, yes.
Yeah. Is he going to be working with the communications committee or getting in touch with them?
Yeah, it's been dormant since I've been here, but we can restart that.
Okay.
Because they haven't met, I haven't met with them yet, but we do still have that, it hasn't been disbanded, so we could put that back together, put the band back together again for that,
Okay.
yes.
Are there any other questions for the city manager? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn the regular commission meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.